Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our special council meeting on May the 8th, 2026. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss water-related matters. I will now call on Tim Brubaker, Regional Clerk, to conduct the roll call.
Thank you. Regional Chair Redmond.
Present.
Councillor Craig.
Present.
Councillor Erb.
Present.
Councillor Foxton.
Present.
Councillor Gowing. Councillor Harris.
Present.
Oh, yep. Okay. We have regrets from Councillor Hunick. I'm going to call on Councillor Verbanovic so he can leave. Councillor Verbanovic is just stepping out. Councillor James. We have regrets from Councillor Liggett and McCabe. Councillor Nowak.
Present.
Councillor Rodriguez.
Present.
Councillor Salinan is running late. Councillor Shantz.
Present.
And Councillor Wolf.
Present.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm glad you qualified that Councillor Vanovich is just running to the car and he will be right back. I'd like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabeg, and the Chinootan peoples. In doing so, I want to reflect on what it means to be doing important community work like we're engaging in collectively today, and also my own individual relationship to this land. As a settler, one of the most important aspects of my individual journey towards truth and reconciliation has been to listen. I'm continually grateful to this community who shares their stories and concerns with me. As well as chair of the region, I know I carry a large responsibility to ensure that it's not just myself on an individual level listening and acting, but that as a government, we are listening and creating action in the community. I'm offering this acknowledgement as one of the many actions I am personally, and the region largely, is taking toward reconciliation. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements, and their contributions to our community. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Seeing none, I now need a move and a seconder for a motion to go into closed session. Moved by Councillor James, seconded by Councillor Erb. The purpose of this motion is to receive advice subject to solicitor-client privilege regarding a potential litigation related to the Mannheim Service Area water capacity constraint, and receiving advice subject to solicitor-client privilege regarding potential litigation related to the Mannheim Service Area water capacity constraint. So, colleagues, it's been moved and seconded. Please use your icons to vote. Councillor Harris, are you in favor? You're online. Colleagues, that is carried. We will retire to the Waterloo room. So colleagues, I'm now looking for a mover and a seconder to go back into open. Moved by Councillor Sean, seconded by Councillor Craig. Do I have unanimous consent to resume this meeting in open? Okay, thank you. So I want to start out by saying good morning, colleagues. And we're here to work through our water capacity constraint, one of the most complex challenges facing Waterloo region. I want to acknowledge the pressure many are feeling right now. And I want to be clear at the outset. There are no sides in this challenge. Every municipality, every partner, and every member of this council ultimately wants the same outcome: a sustainable, safe, reliable water supply and the ability to support growth. That shared goal needs to be and remain at the center of this discussion. Waterloo Region is open for business and unequivocally supportive of growth. We're working closely with industry experts and the development community to finalize an approach that provides clarity and certainty moving forward. We're not relying on a single solution to address the water capacity challenge. More than $100 million has been spent in water infrastructure projects, and they are being fast-tracked across the region. This includes new and innovative solutions like Sidestream, containerized treatment option at the Mannheim service area. In fact, we've compressed more than 7 years of planned work into just 6 months. This level of acceleration reflects the urgency of the moment. This is not a situation where we're standing still. Significant work is underway, grounded in data, science, and testing, and it is already moving us towards additional water capacity. The region operates a single integrated water system that is planned and managed for the benefit of the entire community, now and into the future. Our approach is based on science, long-term planning, and ensuring that all communities are protected. We're taking an evidence-based approach to a complex and often emotional issue. Our responsibility is to make steady, sustainable progress while protecting the long-term reliability of our water system for every community we serve. I have been in regular and constructive discussions with our provincial partners as we work to navigate this together. I wanted to make everyone aware that I have invited the Provincial Land and Development Facilitator to work more closely with the region to help accelerate timelines, provide regulatory relief, and identify additional options for expanded water capacity. All options will be on the table, including looking at potential additional water supply from the Wilmot Waterfield. This is not about replacing the work already underway. This is about strengthening it and ensuring we are exploring every responsible option available to us. This is about partnership and solutions and taking an all-hands-on-deck approach to ensure a sustainable and safe water supply while ensuring we remain open for business. To be clear, our work here will continue and we have a plan that we are executing. I have made the request to the province so that we have additional resources in exploring all options, ensuring we are leaving no stone unturned. Providing clarity and certainty matters to residents, to our municipal partners, to builders, and to employers who are investing in our region. We remain a place where people can build, invest, and create jobs. I want to take a moment to recognize all the work our staff have done, who have been working around the clock under intense pressure and public scrutiny. Their professionalism, their expertise and commitment to finding solutions has been exceptional. I also want to include municipal area staff as well, who have been incredible partners as we've navigated this journey. We need to move forward quickly, responsibly, in a way that is grounded in evidence. We are one region with one shared water system and one shared future. The decisions we make today must reflect that shared responsibility. This is a significant challenge, but I am confident that we can rise to it by staying grounded in science, working together, and acting decisively. We can move forward with confidence. Thank you. Next on our agenda are the delegations. And as we proceed to the delegations listed on the agenda, I want to remind all delegations of some guidelines for participation. If you're attending in person, please proceed to the podium where you are called upon to speak. The podium has a height that can be adjusted. You will have 5 minutes to speak if you registered before the deadline, 3 minutes if you registered after. When you see a yellow light, that will indicate you've got 1 minute remaining. And when you see a red light, that means your time is up and you need to sum up. Additionally, some general reminders: if you conduct yourself in any of the following manners, it will result in immediate removal from the meeting: interrupting councilors, staff, or other delegations; derogatory statements about councilors, staff, or others; turning on your camera at inappropriate times; and hate speech or defamatory comments. One last reminder for delegations: please do not take offense if following your presentation there are no questions from council. This is council's time to really listen and reflect upon the opinions and ideas shared with us from our community members. And as a quick reminder to members of the audience, you're asked to maintain order, and this means you may not address council without the permission of the chair, interrupt anyone, disrupt the meeting with unreasonable noise or vocal expressions such as applause, booing, or cheering, or displaying signs or posters. First delegation is Joseph Pupolo, Executive CEO, Urban Initiatives. Welcome, Joseph, to the podium, and you have 5 minutes.
How's that? Thank you very much for the technical support. Through the chair, I'm here to delegate regarding the water allocation policy. I will be revising some of my comments on the basis of some of the conversations that I have, but I'm generally in support of getting to a place where we're able to allocate water within the region to allow developments to go forward. In the outset, first slide, my recommendation was deferral of this policy until more concrete details would be provided. I would still like to see this advance, but I think the information needs to be shared in very, very short order, and my understanding is that information will become available. The reason why I put forth initially for deferral was regarding data transparency before adoption. Before any type of decisions are made, it's really, really important to understand what the timing is and availability of water. It's my understanding that some information as per the council discretion or direction of March, that there will be some additional data being made available very shortly, and I think that that is absolutely paramount as a formulation to any policy. The second is municipal alignment. I think that from this standpoint, this is the good regional side. We need to see what the corresponding municipal policies are to govern that. Obviously, we're going into the election season, so it's very important that we have a defined policy not only at the regional side as well as the municipal side. The next component is defined allocation allocation and timelines. And I realize this is going to be the large subject of topic in June, but when we're looking at this this policy and only looking at one component of it, it's hard to weigh it without seeing both the municipal side of that policy and where things are going in terms of total allocation and the consequences of that. So next slide, please. The high-level consequences is this: if we don't have any visibility right now, we have an inability to plan. Obviously, there's a lot of capital works in. I would echo your comments, Chair. There's been a lot of work put in both at regional and municipal staff. It's getting to the point that, however, from the development industry, if we don't have a clear timeline as to how we're getting out of this, it's only going to create further uncertainty. And I know that there's a shared goal within this chamber to remove that uncertainty, but short of having all the policy, the data in hand, and also the municipal policy, we have another interim period where it creates more more uncertainty because we haven't seen what the equivalent of the municipal policy is. Next slide. Next slide, please. The next component is, again, coming back to the data. We really just need to have an idea of how long we're going to be at threshold, what the capacity of development is, when certain allocations will be able to be made, and obviously that's going to be a policy decision that's going to be made in June, but we need to have the baseline data as a baseline to be making decisions. And this is something that I've reiterated, and I think Council has reiterated their wantingness to see effectively data to drive this, and that was the basis of the decision that was in March. Next slide, please. In my discussions with staff, both regional and municipal, I think it's really important to set a sunset timing or clause for this allocation policy. I think it would be better to go back to business as usual so that we can just allocate and just apply for servicing things. So I'd like to see specific provisions to accommodate that. I'm just going to go down to my following conclusion, given that I am tying. When I put this slide deck and reviewed the materials, my opinion was the policy was premature. What I would like to see is a more complete framework, whereas we have the data, we can see what the municipal level policy is, and then we have a clear sunsetting provisions to allow for this to run its course. So without any more comments, I appreciate everybody's time and invite any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Always good to see you. And Councillor James has a question.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thanks for coming in, Joseph. You spoke about the data, and I just want to know, and I don't think we had your presentation before. Yeah, we did, but I didn't see this part. Specifically, what data do you think is missing? There's the big, aggregated. Is there a disaggregated? Just to speak to it, specifically.
So what I think would be the most useful thing for council, whenever I'm looking to make a decision from a business standpoint, I want to understand on a month-by-month basis what is the implication. And normally I look at it in terms of dollars and cents. In this case, we're evaluating in terms of water. And one of my requests is to get effectively a water cash flow model. So we know how much water is coming into the system on a monthly basis, and based upon the demands upon the system, based upon the seasonality, how much water is coming out of that. At any given time, that would effectively give us our relative resiliency number. And I recognize the resiliency number requested by staff is 20%. There might be other viewpoints on that as to be what would be the most appropriate, the appropriate thing. But I want to be able to see on a month-by-month basis with all the requests and realistic adds of capacity onto the system, what are the demands, what is the supply, and what is the delta on a month-by-month basis. And I think that would provide a very, very clear viewpoint for not only staff, council, as well as the general public as to what a real quantum of risk is. And I think that would inform decisions.
Okay, thank you. My follow-up questions are for staff, so I'm good. Thank you, Joseph.
Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. Appreciate that you were running out of time, but I wonder if you could speak to your second last slide, coordination gaps create risk. Could you just expand on that a little bit for me?
Yes, and I think it's just since I initially put these slides to now, had a chance to speak with a number of lower tier staff, so I have a little bit more comfort than I did when I initially produced that. I just, and speaking to you, Councillor Shantz, and also Mayor Shantz as a head of council, there's going to need to be a swift coordination at all the lower tier heads of council to make sure that there's a corresponding bylaw for allocation that gets passed. Right now, there's no, when a Form 1 is requested or servicing pre this constraint, there would be sort of no additional process. It was sort of an invisible process that would occur in the past. Where there's a little bit of a gap right now is short of having a receiving policy at the lower tier, we're enacting a policy in the upper tier. There needs to be a receiving policy on the lower tier in order to do that. So if there's broad, I feel a little bit warm and confident if all the respective heads of council are able to say, yes, we're going to have the receiving bylaws done by this time, so that when allocation does become available down to the lower tiers, there's a mechanism to distribute it out to the respective developments.
Councilor Rabanovich.
Thank you very much, and thanks, Mr. Pupolo, for coming in and for your presentation this morning, and also for reflecting some adjustments to it based on what's quickly. Well, sometimes it feels quickly, sometimes not so quick process to try to move pieces of this work forward. I'm just wondering, going back to the data piece that Councillor James was asking you about earlier. I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit about the importance of sort of fully understanding that data, because I've heard from some of the partner organizations that I know you're working with, frustration around not being able to get access to data beyond the original report that was, the information from the original report that was shared with the community. And I'm wondering if you can just talk about how critical that is from a planning perspective, both for 2026 and beyond.
Absolutely, and I think it's very mission critical to not only consider the time of development, but also the seasonality into which we use water. So obviously, we're heading into our higher use season, May to September. We're using higher water. So where I think it's crucial is for ultimately, as part of the interim risks assessment, to understand on a month-by-month basis how much water we're realistically going to use, and then how long it's going to take if something is approved for it to come on stream. So I'm imagining there's going to be further discussions on what the appropriate resiliency rate is. I would imagine as a council, people would want to understand on a month-by-month basis for the next 24, 36, 48 months what the resiliency rate looks at different scenarios, and then being effectively making a decision about, as a council, adopting what resiliency rate they deem is appropriate. I understand staff's recommendation, and I understand where they're coming from, but at the end of the day, it's going to be council's responsibility to determine what the effective resiliency rate should be. And I want you to have, ahead of that decision in the coming months, the best information you can, so each individual councillor can evaluate the risk based upon a month-by-month assessment.
Okay. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Councillor Foxton.
Thank you, and through the chair. Really interesting, Joseph, that you put up lame duck, because I do wonder about the legalities, because hopefully, I am very hopeful, staff is working very hard, that we have some really good numbers by June, first part of June. Because to make decisions and then we're in lame duck, I don't know how that affects it, or does it? Does it affect it being in lame duck?
It's a very good question, so I think I'll turn to the clerk. Thank you.
So through you, Chair, Council, as you're aware, those restricted act provisions kick in if 3/4 of council is not returning either as of nomination day, so 2 p.m. on August 21st would be the first opportunity, or after the election, right? Those are the two windows. The restrictions apply to hiring or removing officers or employees, and council, if they're in that position, can't do that. The other position is $50,000. Council can't spend more than $50,000 if it's not budgeted for. However, council has delegated that authority to the CAO in that period. So there would, that there is an out there. It's not a situation where everything stops.
So at some point, there's going to be an allocation policy for each of the municipalities, and they're going to have to work out their own on how they're going to allocate. So lame duck would not affect that.
So the municipal act doesn't speak to policies or allocation in that regard. It's strictly about spending or disposing of assets that's over $50,000 if it's not budgeted for. But again, Councillor, there is a delegation of authority by law, and the CAO has the authority to act during that period of time above the $50,000, and then needs to consult with the regional chair after that period is over.
Thank you.
I see no further questions, Joseph. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next delegation is Ryan Mounsey, CEO of Urban Insights. Welcome to the podium, and you have 5 minutes. Thank you for raising the podium. Isn't it slick?
Agreed. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for having me. My name is Ryan Mounsey. I am a small planning firm in the city of Waterloo. I represent clients with 1 lot to 1,400 units. I have 20 applications across the region. And what I'm here to talk to you today about is what I just read on Friday and the weekend. Next slide, please. We are now 6 months in the process, and before I get into the slides, I just want to thank staff and council for the hard work and time invested in this. This is a giant of initiative to work through, but we're now in some critical timelines. We're 6 months in, starting almost to the date, in terms of I received the first deferral application, and the current process has been affirmed through the current reports. And so what I've been talking about for the last 4 or 5 months is just an affirmation of the current process that has been applied. There is a freeze on development. And I come back to the report comments in terms of what is not permitted, and that's in the bottom highlighted section. Adds no increase in demand on the system. The use is permitted as of right in the zoning bylaw, and there is no increase in the existing water service connection size except where solely required to comply with the building code. This just reaffirms what is happening. So there's no policy direction right now about saying when is development going to be opening up. I know that's coming, but this is just an affirmation policy today. Next slide. As I talk about it, I am receiving continued requests for water capacity updates from lenders and development industry. And what I have to say is that their development freeze is in place. And the way that I'm proposing this and framing this is that there's current initiatives underway that will open the ability to receive building permits later this year. What I'm hoping is that come this June is that there's actual allocation numbers. I'm going off script right now, and the reason for that is that's my main point. We need allocation numbers in June. That is the most important timeline to allow us not to miss a full development cycle for this year. So we will have gone through an entire year without net new building permits. And that's just the bottom line. And so if there is an ability to look at allocation numbers, please investigate and challenge yourselves to say by June 3rd, can you introduce those numbers? Because you're laying out the foundations right now, which are really, really important. And I think that the framework is important. But we're going to be left with meters or liters per second left over in the first allocation, the time you take out the resiliency buffer. So which projects will be eligible? And the other part I'm going to just talk about is the transfer between the region and the municipalities. I'm hopeful that all municipal councils are in a position to write their implementation policy before September and maybe in August, and that they have in place their own system to facilitate development that will allow some projects to receive a building permit review and issuance by the end of this year. And the last piece I'd talk about is in terms of your net analysis, in terms of what's permitted and not permitted, make sure that all building additions are clearly stated that they are permitted, even if it adds an extra unit or two. I have clients that have had their approvals granted through committee of adjustment, and they're going to be coming in with a 2-unit addition. Are they exempt coming this next month or two with this policy? The next part is to exempt all fire flow capacity requirements from the water capacity analysis. This is an additional number gets placed on top of development for the worst case scenario. It's like Christmas shopping on Christmas Day. It's the most amount of parking that comes in at one time a year. The fire flow analysis comes in hardly ever unless there's a fire, but it increases your liters per second. And so take that out of the equation. And with my last minute, what I'd simply say is, moving through the next slide, is that there was a decision gap. I believe the decision gap is now closed because it's moving to the municipalities very soon and very shortly. And they're the ones that are going to have to create the policies. So us as development industry and consultants will have to go to each of the municipalities asking about their criteria. That is not efficient. And lastly, we'll just go in terms of what the development needs, 2 slides. And I have 30 seconds left. I'm aware of the time. We just need to know what is the development capacity and allocation today, not in the fall, because that bumps construction to next year. What are the implications of having no new net development for 1 full year? So I just conclude in terms of what the development industry really needs is we need the expediency of allocation numbers next month. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ryan. And Councillor James has a question.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Ryan, thanks for the presentation and coming in. I just had a question. You just mentioned something that I have not heard yet, and that was the comment about fire flow. Can you just explain that and how it applies now with approving of service agreements?
Thank you, Councillor James, through you, Chair. This is when you have private fire hydrants on property that don't meet the building code to have a fire hydrant within a certain distance. And so I have development applications that have private fire hydrants on their property. Well, they get penalized by water flow because it's coming off their property. The water is coming from their property line. And so just say they're coming in with a 100 millimeter service that supports this development. The fire flow may increase it to 150 millimeter service to account for that one-time event where they need extra fire flow and water pressure to put out the fire. This isn't accounted for or applied when it's on the municipal system. So you need to treat private fire flow and private fire hydrants like a public fire hydrant. Exclude it from the calculation so that when people submit their water allocation numbers, that's deducted from the overall functional servicing report that's required for all development applications.
Okay, thank you. I'd be curious to know if this is something that region or area municipalities have control over, if this is something greater in terms of, you know, any sort of provincial standards or what have you.
Happy to answer that if that's a question.
Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Through you, Councillor James, and to the Chair. This is a provincial requirement, and so this gets passed through the MECP process. So it's a ministerial process that has to be allocated at building permit stage, but it's how the region and their own policy. Most of the reports that I read are for information, but if it's a regional policy, hopefully staff can take that in and build it into the June 3rd report to give to council for information, unless it's a council decision, which can adjust that.
Councillor Ivanovich.
Thank you very much, and thanks, Mr. Mounsey, for coming in today and for your presentation. At one point, you talked about, you know, the fact that this has been 6 months since it was clarified, and or since the region made the announcement about the water supply issue. And you know, part of what you're hearing, if I understood correctly, particularly from the finance community and so on, is needing more clarity in order to be able to move forward with their plans and timing and so on. Just wondering if you can elaborate on that a little bit and the importance of that, because I think it's important that council and our staff and others listening just sort of understand how that portion of the system works.
Thank you, Councillor Mayor Ivanovich, and through the chair. What I can share is that this was an issue that I wasn't day-to-day directly involved with, working in municipal government for 20 years. This is what I deal with on a daily basis. And so what I deal with is that someone has to fund a development project. That even includes affordable housing projects. That includes all development projects subject to CMHC funding through the MLI Select program that has timelines related to affordable housing. And so what happens is a developer may be able to secure funding through traditional banks or private lending subject to performance conditions. So is it 6 months? Is it 1 year? That a bank or a financial institution or a lender will allow someone to buy the property, to pay for the development approvals, to pay for the development charges, and then to pay for the construction process. If that process gets blown out by 6 months, as an example, which it has been right now, then you pay penalties, or you have to get a mezzanine lending agreement in place for the original term, or you lose your funder. And so the projects then sit and then they go under power of sale. And then the banks come in and then they sell your property, which has been happening for the last little bit. So I have projects that are coming in right now under power of sale that people just bought them and they say, what do you mean there's no water? When can I get my permit? I just bought this property that was under power of sale. Well, everyone told you there's no water, but there's no timelines. So this uncertainty that has been created is very, very problematic. And so without even saying when a little bit of water can come to market, the banks are now saying we're going to take, or not the banks, the financial lending institutions and lenders are saying, why should I continue to invest in this project? The money is more valuable somewhere else with people that can build. And so that's going to leave property owners in a very difficult position, or not meeting your criteria for CMHC housing that has blown out those timelines. So I think I've explained the gravity of the situation to the best of my ability. If there's any questions, I'm happy to expand on it, but I think that covers it.
Well, just as a follow-up, because you did mention CMHC, I don't know if you've been talking to them at all. Are you getting any sense from them in terms of how they're sort of viewing any applications, public or private, from our area right now as they navigate through this?
Through you, Chair. Not directly with CMHC. I'm dealing directly with my clients that are in agreement with CMHC, and this is becoming an issue for them.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Ryan, for coming in. I wanted to pick up on the fire flow piece that you spoke about, and I think one of the criteria that's in front of us today talks about, except we're solely required to comply with the building code. Would you see, in your experience, those fire flow requirements and on-site fire hydrant, would it fall under that criteria, that it's a building code requirement to have that?
Ryan, only answer if you're comfortable.
Yes, this is a very rare time through you, Chair, is saying I'd have to get back to you on that specific answer. I don't know 100%.
And I'm happy to ask staff after. And they may have an answer. I just wanted to see if you, just because if it was satisfied by that, it may be captured by that criteria. So I'll park that for staff and to be continued.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Chair.
Ryan, thank you for your fulsome answers, and I think talking about the fact that that's a requirement through MECP is also great clarity, so thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Next delegation is Larry Kotzeb, Vice President, Real Estate Development, Solar Wave Investments Limited. Welcome, Larry. You have 5 minutes, and the floor is yours.
The floor is yours.
And you're going to leave the podium up high, right?
I am. Good morning, Chair Redmond and members of council. My name is Larry Kotzeb, and I'm here on behalf of Conestoga Park Square at 65 Northfield Drive West in the city of Waterloo. I appeared before council in January on this matter. As members of council are aware, our site was home to the Krause factory, a 550,000 square foot building connected to the water system. Any tenant could have moved into that building and utilized water up to the full capacity of the existing connections without regional approval. We demolished the factory for the sole purpose of building new housing with the expectation that construction would now be underway. The stated purpose of Report 26009, which is item 7.2 on the agenda, is to provide clarity on development that is not likely to result in an increased demand on the water system and may be able to proceed. Our first building is not just consistent with that purpose, it's a reduction in demand. Our zoning is approved. The demolished factory had 5 water connections. Our first building needs only 1. Same pipe size, not bigger, using less than 15% of the water demand the factory consumed. Further, our demand is phased. We build 1 tower at a time. The first tower includes 235 units, including 24 affordable units. And we will not need water until occupancy in 2029. The second building, occupancy 2023, and the third building, occupancy in 2033. Subsequent buildings would proceed under the phasing of capacity allocation contemplated in a report 26012, which is item 7.3 on the agenda. Our project, quite frankly, is built for this approach. If the Krause factory were still standing, it would still be connected to the water system and consuming water. We demolished a factory with 5 connections. We are asking for 1 back to build our first building. Report 26009 provides clarity, enabling the city to approve building permits for development that does not increase demand. Our project meets that same test, but requires regional water servicing approval, which only the region can provide. And we feel that Report 009 does not address this matter. In short, we respectfully request that Council direct staff in a number of areas. 1, to provide the same clarity for projects where connected buildings have been demolished and the development does not increase demand on that system in the Report 009. And secondly, to process our pending servicing application for our first building on that basis. Madam Chair, that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much, and there are some. Councillor Foxton.
Thank you, and may I direct it to staff?
If it's not for the delegation, I'll hold it in abeyance.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Shantz. Thank you very much, Larry. I think you can sit down.
Okay.
The next delegation is Larry Mascio, Vice President, Real Estate Development, Solar Wave Investments. That's
Wrong,
not
Larry.
right, is it? Anyway, Larry, you registered, Waterloo Home Builders Association. That one's right. Misprint here. You delegated after the deadline, so you have 3 minutes. Please go ahead.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Chair Redmond, members of Council. My name is Larry Mascio. I'm here on this morning on behalf of WRHBA. To begin, we appreciate all regional efforts to respond to the Mannheim water capacity constraint. To begin, we also recognize the need for caution and resiliency in critical infrastructure planning. However, as currently framed, the policy approach in the staff report requires further development industry consultation and refinement. Having access to the region's full suite of development or water data would also help. In its present form, the policy lacks sufficiently clear, transparent, and temporal objectives. This creates uncertainty for housing delivery, community investment, and project planning across the affected area. We would like to highlight 3 key issues. First, the policy must be time-related. Any interim growth management policy should only remain in place until a clearly defined and justifiable resiliency buffer is established and formally approved by Regional Council. Without a clear endpoint to trigger for lifting constraints, the policy effectively becomes open-ended. That level of uncertainty undermines confidence and makes it very difficult for builders and municipalities to plan responsibly. Secondly, Consistent implementation across area municipalities is essential. The policy must establish a clear and consistent framework so that the application review, conditions, and expectations do not vary by municipality or by file. Inconsistency creates unfairness, increases risk, and invites delay and appeal. At the outset, builders need to clearly understand how approval decisions will be made and applied across the area municipalities. This includes explicit recognition of both approved and in-process developments that are already in the pipeline. Projects that have been approved or are well advanced in the planning process were based on servicing assumptions previously endorsed by the region. These projects must be fairly and transparently addressed to ensure fairness. Third, the policy must establish a justifiable methodology for allocating new capacity. As system improvements are realized, there must be a transparent and defensible methodology that balances two objectives. The first being an appropriate resiliency buffer, and the second enabling new development to proceed. Absent a framework, capacity allocation decisions will appear arbitrary and unpredictable. A clear methodology prepared in collaboration with the development industry will support accountability, align with housing targets, and restore confidence. To summarize, we are asking Council to ensure that this policy meets the following key aspects. It needs to be approved by Regional Council with clear time limitations. It has to be applied consistently across the Mannheim service area and must recognize and, where appropriate, prioritize developments already in the pipeline. And it needs to establish a clear evidence-based approach to capacity allocation. So with that, I think I'm at my time limit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Larry. Councillor Shantz, is this to this delegation, or is this a legacy? Councillor Shantz.
At the beginning of your presentation, thank you for the presentation, by the way. At the beginning, you said we need more consultation. Can you just elaborate on, so you've itemized very clearly that your 3 asks. I really appreciate that. So what kind of consultation are you looking for before we come up with this or we present this?
Well, I think in response through you, Chair Redmond, I think the consultation we were looking for is around those 3 asks. We want to be part of the policy making on this particular aspect because it's so important to our business. So I hope that provides you a little bit more.
Thanks. Can I just have
You may.
follow up? So we've got these various tables that we hear about. Are you part of one of those? And can you just elaborate on consultation, maybe?
Well, our association does have 3 members as part of the region's technical working group. The information I'm hearing is that there's not as much opportunity for some of the real discussion that needs to happen at that. They're limited time meetings. There's usually presentations, which doesn't leave a lot of time left. So we think the region needs to find a way to more meaningfully consult with the industry that is most affected by this policy.
Thanks for that feedback.
Councillor Vanovich.
Thanks, and thanks very much, Larry, for coming in today, or I should say Mr. Massio, to be consistent with the other delegations. I guess, building on the question that Councillor Shantz was asking, I mean, part of the challenges, as you know, is that that what's before us today is also critical in order for the area municipalities to be able to move forward with the work that will need to be done in terms of the specific, when the allocations come from the region and then the implementation of that from a risk management point of view. As we heard from an earlier delegation, they sort of expressed some of the concerns you did as well, but also I got a sense that there was an opportunity to continue moving forward with this. Do you see that potentially that opportunity is there so that we can continue doing the next body of work and not lose time from that perspective?
Well, through you, Chair Redmond, I don't see it as a matter of losing time. I think appropriate discussion could happen fairly rapidly, and everybody understands the urgency of the situation here. So you're not going to find the development industry holding you back in that respect. We think some consultation is appropriate and necessary in the establishment of the policy, because it's very difficult to understand how the limited capacity that will be freed up will be distributed across the service area, Mannheim service area. And, I'm looking on behalf of the members of our association, and we have members that have projects in all different phases, in all different areas, and requiring all different amounts of water to get their developments moving. And we need to ensure that somehow the policy doesn't exclude certain developments for whatever reason. Again, I alluded to in my presentation, there's many developments out there that have already been approved. They've expended hundreds of thousands of dollars, in many cases millions of dollars, transiting the approval process, and they're ready to move forward, and they can't right now. And just because something might be a more immediate, smaller development, or, for instance, doesn't mean it should automatically get new capacity given the situation. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is I look at, reading the staff report, and I'm a little bit unclear in my own mind how some of the municipal and government-led projects may be prioritized, perhaps in priority to private sector development, and that would be of concern to our members and our association as well. So there has to be full transparency, and I think we need to understand that everybody needs to be able to have access to the supply. So it's going to be a very difficult job you have to determine how that capacity is going to be allocated. But I think that makes it easier when there's more consultation.
Okay, thank you for that. I guess one of the things that I've heard from your organization is concern around access to data, which was a question that I had asked Mr. Pupolo as well. And I'm wondering if you can speak to that, because ultimately, much of this problem would be solved if there was a leveling out of understanding around both the nature of the capacity constraints, what's infrastructure related, what may or may not be, and really understanding even things like the resiliency factor, and there are different thoughts around that. I mean, several members of regional council had an opportunity to listen to a presentation from Chris Garrett's at one of your association meetings recently, which certainly brought forward a number of ideas that could actually add some capacity in the shorter term going forward. And so I'm wondering if you can speak about that, sort of that piece and the work that that your folks have done around some of that numeric analysis, and you know, would in fact your Mr. Garrett's be, if we could allocate the time here at council. I think it was a 30-minute presentation there, but maybe we can bring it down to, give him some extra time and bring it down to 20. Would he be willing to come to a future meeting and present to regional council? And then we can figure out the logistics on how to handle that.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair Redmond. In response, Mayor Abranovich, there was a lot in that question, so I'll try to remember it all. So first off, we have been asking for the full data suite for, well, since the beginning. As we've indicated in previous delegations, we have retained water experts at great expense to our organization, and I think the best way to use those resources would be to, if they were to have access to the data, we are very confident that they could come up with some additional ideas and methodologies to find capacity or free up additional capacity where appropriate. So that's very important to our organization, and we reiterate that. We've also indicated absolutely we would be willing to make Mr. Garrett's available to any meeting of council at our expense to help bring about the knowledge that's needed to make the best decisions around this horseshoe. So, and I think there was one other aspect of your question that I've now forgotten, but
I think you covered it off well enough for today. I mean, I'll just end, and I'll raise it again later. But I think for those of us who were there, what was intriguing about it is Mr. Garrett's is a hydrogeologist, but has done work here in the region and is also a mayor in another municipality outside of the region. So kind of brings a dual perspective to these kinds of issues, which would be beneficial potentially for council to hear.
So Larry, thank you very much for coming, and to reiterate, it's the Waterloo Region Home Builders Association, so thank you for representing your organization. I am going to go back. Councillor Foxton.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. Yes, Chris also did the problems in Walkerton and helped to resolve that for the province. I know Chris well. I sit on a couple committees with him. What I wanted to ask about was Larry Kofseth's point. So he takes down an industrial building. Now, Ms. Shaw, I'm going to be asking you this. Did we have water allocated for that building at the time that it was taken down, or did we remove the allocation? Don't you love it when I hit you with these things?
Oh, Amy, the question is, when industrial buildings are taken down, do we reserve the allocation, or is it sort of put back in the mix? That was what Larry Kotzep was asking.
So through the chair, yes. My understanding is that unless it's within the last 12 months, so in the last year's calculation, it would not be included in the flow. So a building like that, which I believe has been vacant, well, not vacant, but for 7 years, significant decrease in flows, that would not be accounted for.
Larry, can you confirm the time frame, please? Yes. Because if it's going from 5 to 1, then I would ask why we couldn't move forward with this.
Okay, so we're not debating the delegation.
Oh,
so
I'm not
just
debating, I'm
Larry,
asking for
specifically the question is, how long has the industrial use of that site not been using the water allocation?
The building was occupied until 2023, demolished late 23, 24, so there was water supply to the building
Thank you.
recently.
So, Ms. Shaw?
So through the chair, what I meant was from the amount of water that was being used at the industrial facility up until, I believe it was 7 years ago, it was a significant quantity of water. I do understand that water was going to that facility, minimal quantities from what it was when it was the industrial facility. That's what I meant by that.
Thank you. Would you say that minimum quantity would be sufficient for the allowing of this build? Or would you know?
Through the chair, I would not be able to speak to that, but again, in the last year, it would likely not have been included in those flows that we have allocated.
It's just something that I thought we should maybe look at if there's other situations like this and make sure our allocations are correct based upon actual data. Thank you.
Councillor Ashons. That was your question? All right. Thank you very much. Thank you all the delegations for coming. We will now move forward with our agenda. And next is a report. There's 2 reports. We're going to take them in 2 parts and allow questions after the, 7.1. So this is having to do with the work underway at the Mannheim Service Water Capacity Constraint as well as the approach to development. Both reports are for information. I'll now call on Ken Brothers, Commissioner of Water and Wastewater, to introduce both. And again, after 7.1, there will be a time for questions.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Regional Councillors. I'm pleased to give you an update today on the progress that we've made on ongoing repair works and new infrastructure projects to address the water capacity constraint. The presentation that will follow here will be in 2 parts. The first will be an update on the works to date and the Mannheim Side Stream project presentation, which I know you're all looking forward to. And after that, we'll entertain questions with the presenter. We'll continue with the second part of the presentation will be updates on the water conservation, planning, data, and approach to development, which is in your subsequent report. But they are tied together, so we're going to continue, in effect, with 2 reports with the second phase of the presentation this morning. So with that, if we could bring up the first slide, please. Moving on. So as we move forward, just some updates on a few of the well systems that we have. The K32 Side Stream Feasibility Project study is underway. The Grand Water Supply K70s and 80s project is entering the initial inspection phase. This project is anticipated to bring up to 100 liters per second of new capacity online in 2032. Staff are finalizing the environmental assessment update for the Maple Grove Water System project, after which time the more detailed design phase will begin. This project is anticipated to bring 42 liters per second of capacity online in 2030. The work at Greenbrook plant continues, with repairs and enhancements anticipated to be completed later this year. The Greenbrook Water Treatment Plant new facility plan is also underway, which will outline the long-term needs for the site, and it includes an expansion off-site. As you know, staff and partners have been working tirelessly on the Mannheim Side Stream project pilot, which will help us treat more water at the Mannheim Water Treatment Plant until a permanent solution is in place in a few years. This is critically important for us to move forward. So I'm now going to pass the floor over to Eamon Kadar, who is an engineer in our water services group. Eamon, please come forward. And is the project manager on the side stream pilot solution. He was instrumental in investigating and coming up with a containerized approach here, and we're delighted to have him on staff. He'll provide us with an update on the status of this project, and with that, Eamon, I turn the floor to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brothers. Through you, Madam Chair, I'm here to provide Council with an overview of the Mannheim Side Stream ultrafiltration container project and to outline all of the work that has taken place in the last few months. Our priority remains to implement the solution as quickly as possible without compromising our duty to protect public health and employee health and safety. I was going to say next slide, but you beat me to it. Before I walk you through the project updates, a quick refresher on how the Mannheim Water Treatment Plant currently operates. Raw water is taken from the Grand River at the Hidden Valley Low Lifts pumping station. We then store the raw water in the Hidden Valley reservoirs, And after that, it's pumped uphill approximately 10 kilometers to the Mannheim water treatment plant. Next slide, please. The Mannheim water treatment plant is the largest water treatment plant in the region with a capacity of 795 liters per second. Water pumped from the Hidden Valley reservoirs is stored in 2 raw water tanks where it's gravity fed through several treatment processes, including coagulation, flocculation, settling through plate settlers, ozonation, filtration, and UV irradiation, and chloramination before it's distributed to the Mannheim service area. The plate settling technology, can you click through? Right there, so highlighted there in red, the plate settling technology is not suitable for the full design flow rate, and there is a risk of catastrophic failure if plant flows are peaked too high or for too long without adequate cleaning. Next slide, please. This is something we already identified and are in the process of rectifying through the installation of a dissolved air flotation technology. This project was originally scheduled for completion in 2033, but since the capacity issue was identified, we have worked to expedite delivery as much as possible and are targeting completion of that project in late 2030. Next slide, please. One more, please. In the interim, we're planning a temporary solution to bridge the gap between present limited operations and the full-scale DAF implementation. DAF is dissolved air flotation. We will pull a portion of the raw water that cannot be sent through the rate-limited plate settlers and send it through the containerized ultrafiltration membrane trailers. That filtered effluent will then be sent back to the plant, combined with the post-sedimentation water that currently goes through the plates, and then directed to the remaining plant treatment processes, effectively bypassing the bottleneck. Next slide, please. Our project objectives have been to increase the capacity at the Mannheim water treatment plant in the short term while maintaining our commitment to public health. We also want to alleviate the existing pretreatment capacity restrictions in the plate settlers, and we want to provide a bridge to the full-scale dissolved air flotation system commissioning. Next slide, please. It's a little hard to read the text on that slide, but I'll walk you through a lot of the context here. We thought of this idea back in mid-December. We've made significant progress in the last 6 months or so. There's been a lot of progress on various streams of the design and construction progress all happening in parallel, starting with the selection of the technology. Ultrafiltration membranes are common in the water treatment industry, but have not been used in the region. So we needed to investigate and confirm what vendors could supply, at what costs, how it would be installed, maintained, and operated. We immediately engaged the services of consultants already working on the adjacent DAF upgrades to ensure that anything we implemented in the interim would not affect the DAF project in the long term. And we reached out to our industry experts to aid in the selection of the preferred ultrafiltration technology. The technology and supply vendors were selected in early February, about 6 weeks from the initial idea, through a defensible, risk-managed approach as presented to Council on February 6th. Normally, this process would take about a year or so, but with the assistance from our partners, consultants, and industry experts, we were able to complete this in 6 weeks over the holiday season. In parallel, we were working on the detailed design, as we recognized the complexity of tying in 4 100,000-pound containers into an already operating water treatment plant. As the design was progressing, we recognized the need to have a contractor on board ASAP to review the constructability of the proposed design, as well as aid in the procurement of long lead time equipment and complete the site prep work to ensure we could be ready to install the units as soon as the detailed design is complete. We've also engaged the relevant regulatory bodies to notify them that this was coming down the pipeline, collect their feedback during the design process, and address them as we proceeded through the design to ensure expedited approvals. Huge thanks to the City of Kitchener staff and the MECP for working with us over the past couple of months to expedite these approvals. I just went through a lot, but I do want to take a moment here to acknowledge the progress we've made so far, that we've all collectively accomplished in the past 6 months. In terms of progressing from an initial idea to the point of having a detailed design almost complete, a contractor already on site working, and a lot of the major equipment either secured or en route, would normally take about 2 years under normal conditions. And what we've managed to do is compress this work into just under 6 months. There's still a lot to do, and we aren't taking our foot off the gas, but I do want to take a moment to thank the many region staff, consultants, suppliers, and contractors that have gotten us here, as well as all of you in council, who have worked with us to keep things moving as efficiently as possible. So I wanted to sincerely thank you for that. I also wanted to thank all of our family and friends who have been patient with us while we worked tirelessly over the past 6 months to get where we are. I would be remiss if I didn't specifically thank my wife so close to Mother's Day for her patience with me especially, and my daughters who have watched so many council videos lately that they think we're on TV. So I have to give them a special shout out. I love you, kiddos. Your dad's on TV. Next slide, please. Now that we've covered some of the background information and a bird's eye view of the plant and project progress, let's dive into some of the finer design details. First, allow me to apologize for my graphic design skills. I did not want to take away our CAD and GIS designers away from their work, so I put this together myself. Please excuse the figure quality. I wanted to show this figure to highlight where we plan on putting the containers, as well as some of the nearby infrastructure. The blue box just to the south of the existing building is where we plan to install the 4 containers. It's essentially the only viable spot on site, given the constraints of working within a functional water treatment plant with requirements for operations, chemical deliveries, maintaining our minimum fire truck turning radiuses, and so on. As you can see, we're still working around critical infrastructure. In addition to the 5 water treatment lines that you see in blue, there's also a gas line, fiber lines, electrical conduits, and chemical lines, as well as a couple of sanitary lines that are not depicted. I highlighted the 5 water lines as they are buried under approximately 7 meters of poor fill material and can be damaged if the structural concrete pads are not designed and installed properly. If these lines are damaged in any way during our project, we risk impacting our existing treatment capacity at Mannheim. We also have to ensure that the 4 100,000-pound containers we are installing do not experience any differential settlement, which could lead to failure of those units. Preliminary geotechnical findings received on April 6 indicated the need for piling to protect current and proposed infrastructure. We immediately engaged the services of a piling specialist and are taking the necessary precautions with the design and construction to ensure we eliminate or mitigate these risks. It's a time-consuming process, and we have to ensure we move safely. We're essentially threading a needle, or in this case, there's 24 piles, through critical infrastructure. So this is what I wanted to highlight from a site civil perspective and give you a better understanding of why the concrete pads haven't been poured just yet. Next slide, please. With that, we can move on to some of the 3D renderings that actual qualified designers have put together of the proposed layout and piping into the plant. These drawings were accurate as of April 16th, but there are some minor variations as we work through the design. Essentially, we're pulling water from the raw water header feeding into the plant. Essentially, if you look at the bottom side of that image, there's the wall of the plant, and on the right-hand side, that's where we're going to be pulling our water up and through the plant, and then we're going to go through a tunnel, the utilidor, and it's going to be heat traced, coming up through the tunnel, then back underground to feed each of the 4 filters. We're trying to keep the piping underground where possible to avoid freezing, tripping hazards, any damage caused by snow removal, and so on. Next slide, please. Once the water is sent through the ultrafiltration trailers, the treated effluent is going to be directed overhead, where it'll be heat traced and sent back underground into the plant to tie in downstream of the existing plate settlers and go through the remaining treatment processes at Mannheim. I want to highlight that these sketches are simplified versions of what's going on. For each of these trailers, there are 11 different connections between drain lines, feed lines, chemical connections that need to be plumbed and directed. This is a complex process and will take time. The trailers being delivered to site does not mean that we have water immediately. There will be significant construction effort, followed by a staged commissioning process to ensure everything is functioning as intended and the water produced is safe and acceptable quality for tie-in to the plant. Next slide, please. And next slide, please. Thank you. As discussed, this is a technology that we as a region are unfamiliar with. Typically, before working with new technology like this, we would pilot on a small scale to confirm efficacy and specific operating parameters prior to full-scale design. In the interest of efficiency, the pilot will be performed with our first trailer when it's online. This is tentatively scheduled for some time in Q3 2026. Much of the subsequent timeline will be heavily dependent on the result of our piloting program, both in terms of quantity of water that can be delivered, as well as when the flow will be able to come online. Our source water is the Grand River, which is not as steady in terms of influent water quality conditions as other lake-based sources in Ontario. We're prone to large seasonal swings and variations in quality, temperature, and algal blooms that all impact the performance of the filters. We won't have a clear picture of our sustainable capacity until after piloting in various seasons and conditions. Next slide, please. Our target remains to provide 300 liters per second, but it could be less depending on the influent water quality conditions, and we won't have that clear picture of what that flow could ultimately be until we've gone through several months of piloting. Following the initial piloting phase, we anticipate bringing flows online in 25 to 50 liter per second increments steadily to not upset the existing operating conditions at Mannheim over the course of the next year, with the ultimate capacity available in Q2 2027. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, construction is already underway, and we have already purchased long lead time electrical equipment and piping. We've begun the removals and relocation of conflicting equipment to accommodate new supply from our ultrafiltration units. And we're progressing with the design of helical support and construction pads. Next slide, please. I think that's the update from me. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Eamon.
Yeah.
Don't go anywhere.
Okay.
Work will continue and be expedited through the pilot phase, and we'll keep council and the public apprised of the updates as this project continues. As you're aware, there are several tours at the Laminar Water facility in Cambridge, and they've been scheduled for council members on May 11th, prior to the shipment of the first container to the Mannheim site. So, Chair, we thought we would pause at this point because of this critical aspect of our presentation and allow council an opportunity to provide some questions to Eamon.
Thank you very much, and we do have some speakers, but Eamon, I have to say, that was the best PSA in the middle to your wife and your children, and you certainly, I think, have full support of this community and certainly this council for all the hard work everyone's been doing, so thanks for that shout out. Councillor Foxton.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. So I have to ask a question, so I'll ask the question first. Can you keep up this pace? You've said you've done basically in 6 months what takes 2 years. Is that correct?
Yep. Yes.
So is it realistically that you can keep up this pace?
Absolutely.
God, I love you. Great job. Great job. I think this is wonderful. The best news I've heard all day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Vrbanovich.
Thank you very much, and thanks, Eamon, for a great presentation, certainly a really exciting project, and one that'll hopefully, not hopefully, that assuming it works, will help us take some steps towards solving this short to midterm issue. I guess my one question, well, a couple things. When you showed the blue box that goes over the pipes, I saw off to the left, there's what looked like a staff parking lot or something. I mean, was there a thought or an examination of going there so that you don't have the risk of pipes underground? And if we're not using that, why not?
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. Great question. We absolutely reviewed that as well as several other locations, and in discussion with our City of Kitchener staff, there's a lot of different reasons why we didn't do that. One, it's probably the biggest one is it's a functioning water treatment plant with a lot of chemical deliveries that all use that access road. Gotcha. So that's probably the biggest reason, but there's plenty more.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. As we look at this, and some of this will obviously roll into later in the year, and some of it into next year. I do kind of think of, because this is a system, like, it's new to us, but it's something that, I think the military is used in disaster areas and things like that. Are there other things that we can do to support you and the team in order to be able to, to move some of it even faster than we are? And I think of, what happened during COVID, right? It was, we did a lot of stuff differently during that time. Obviously, it needs human resources to make that happen. But it could, investing some more in for us at the front end and supporting you and the team could also mean that we're protecting hundreds, if not thousands, of other jobs. So wondering if you can provide some thoughts or insights onto that.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, we are moving as fast as humanly possible with your support, and you guys have been great, so I can't ask for any more support. It's been great. We can't physically move any faster. Yeah, we've got a team of, I think, over 15 vendors, suppliers, contractors, consultants already helping us. Over 100 people. We don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes you can put more people into something and help a situation. Sometimes you can put more people into a situation and make it worse. And obviously, we don't want to do that. Okay, thank you. That's a helpful insight.
So, Eamon, I see no more questions. Thank you for your presentation, all your hard work, and note to clerk staff, we actually need a higher podium.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I appreciate
Thank you. Commissioner Brothers, over to you.
Thank you, Chair Redmond. Council, I think with this presentation, you have a much better understanding of the complexity that we were talking about yesterday in terms of asset management and implementation to a live plant. Eamon's touched on the complexities at this site and the mobilization of staff, resources, contractors, and so forth to make this happen. So I want to tip my hat to the water team, all of its consultants and support systems that we have that are accelerating this project at the maximum possible speed because they get it. They understand what's at stake here in terms of the community, in terms of the water supply issue, and the effect on business and allowing development to continue. And this is the vehicle that we're going to be riding to achieve that. That's critically important for us to be successful here. So we're going to put our full support behind Eamon and his team to make this happen. And if we need additional support or advisement from council, we'll certainly bring it back to you to keep you up to date on as we move forward. With that, we can continue with part B of the presentation. Thank you with that. Next slide. So in addition to the infrastructure update, staff are working on other mitigation tactics, including water conservation, which is critically important, particularly coming into the summer. Waterloo region has a strong history of water efficiency and conservation, which is important for a groundwater-based community like ours. A consultant is leading a working group to prepare a conservation policy and recommendations to council that will come forward to a report on May 28th, after conferring with area municipalities and interested stakeholders. In the meantime, the region's bylaw for water conservation that limits outdoor water use is set to come into effect May 31st. While water conservation won't add new capacity that can be relied upon for immediate growth, it remains crucial to our system. We're planning more education and communications ahead of the bylaw this year to encourage residents to conserve water as they do every year. With that, I'll just turn the floor over to Commissioner Rougier.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Brothers. As Council is aware, a short-term growth forecast for 2026 and 2031 is being finalized. Watson & Associates has prepared this with the current market conditions and local socioeconomic and demographic trends considered. Staff are bringing this forward to the May 28th Special Council. This short-term forecast is informing the interim risk management framework, and the water supply capacity allocation policy is presented today in greater detail as well. Staff are continuing to review requests related to servicing agreements such as transfers and forward-looking servicing agreements. More information on this is expected to come to Special Council as things progress. In April, we held a technical workshop with the region, area municipalities, development stakeholder group, and technical water experts on solutions, processes, and advocacy that was very beneficial. The planning-focused working group and development stakeholder group continue to meet to advance the work within these reports and to drive future policies. I will pass it over or back to Commissioner Brothers for the approach to development update.
Thank you, Rod. The region's position is that development that meets all of the criteria laid out below could be considered for approval to proceed at the discretion of the area municipality. It adds no increased demand on the system. The use is permitted as of right in the zoning bylaw, and there's no increase in the existing water service size except where solely required to comply with the building code. Let's just take a moment here. We talked about fire protection here during the presentations, Chair. Fire protection sizing does not add demand, so that will not be included in any demand calculations moving forward. It'll be captured in the peaking, but not part of the assessment in terms of new demand. So, if you will, fire connections and so forth can proceed. And that's the indication that we've discussed with area municipalities throughout. So hopefully that information can get back to the previous speaker. At this time, the region can advise that the following types of development are not anticipated to result in an increased demand to the water systems. These would include schools up to the secondary schools, daycares, faith-based institutions, an existing non-residential facility that is constructed, has a building permit, and is already connected to the water system. A proposed development or redevelopment of land that does not require a Planning Act application to proceed, including minor variance, and does not result in a new demand on the water supply. These are considered to be included in the region's existing demand calculations. A like-for-like replacement that doesn't result in an increased water use or demand is also included. For vacant non-residential and residential properties, a case-by-case evaluation will need to be carried out by municipalities to determine if it would result in an increase in demand on the system. I'll now pass over to Commissioner McDonald for a communications update.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Brothers. The communications team is working on the next progress update, which is set to go out following today's special council meeting. It will include the latest updates on the Mannheim Side Stream project, which we're very excited to spotlight. And I'm now thinking I should put a photo of Eamon in it so his kids can see him in print as well as on the news. Work continues with our external communications support as we're doing some collaborative work with area municipalities. We've also updated our water capacity webpage using an information hub style to display everything in one place for the community to easily access. We'll continue to update the community through our progress reports, social media posts, and website updates. Back over to you, Commissioner Brothers.
Thank you, Connie. For next steps, we're continuing to prioritize repairs and enhancements to our infrastructure, including Green Book. The hiring process continues as we aim to staff resource in the near term to carry out our critical work, and we're well on the way of achieving that. The various working groups continue to meet regularly and are focused on actioning next steps to move forward as quickly as we can. And this includes the sharing of information with contractors, developers, builders, and so forth. On May 28th, we'll bring you more information on the water conservation policy recommendations and endorsement for direction. On June 3rd, we will present the interim risk management framework technical recommendations for your consideration and support. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll be open for questions. And this really relates to the next report that you have before you, ESS WIM 26-09.
Thank you very much. Councilor Rodriguez.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for clarifying which two reports we can speak to. On the conservation front, I know we're expecting a broader update next month. Could you just help me understand if that includes, or if we could see that conservation effort include things like greywater programs and anything related to inflow and infiltration work? Could you just clarify if that's part of the conservation scope that's being looked at?
Through you, Chair. I can't, unfortunately. I know they looked across all of conservation policy, looking at area municipalities. So I can't specifically speak to what will be included in the recommendations, but I do know they did a fulsome scan across area municipalities, as well as dealing with our interested stakeholders. And I do know discussions were happening around gray water, but I'm just not sure if they'll come out as the top recommendations. I haven't seen the final report yet.
Okay, thanks for that. I'll look forward to the report then. On the 009 report, I guess my question on these criteria and is twofold. One, to try and understand if this is a juncture where council should make a decision and endorse these criteria as, you know, a resource going forward. I think we've heard that there were other decisions that maybe could have had council involvement in terms of an endorsement to go forward with. And so I'd be curious staff's comments on that. And as part of that, I'd also be curious to understand like some very specific examples of things that could go ahead under these criteria. I still think they're fairly they're very limiting, and it'd be really interesting to know if there's some very specific types of development that we could see. And I'm sure the CBOs at the various area municipalities have thought through this, but I'd just be curious to hear what could be captured by these criteria. Thanks, Chair.
Who wants to answer that one? Over to you, Amy.
Through the chair. So through collaboration with our municipal partners, we were asked more so for consistency and just with respect to the region's position on, and we were trying to be flexible in kind of clarifying what types of development could proceed. So we did provide our initial take on it with our planning staff, and we did get some feedback from them, and we did modify this list based on that feedback. So this is what we came out with. It is ultimately up to, like you said, the chief building official to make the decision. We don't see the applications. We don't see the specifics. We often get asked our opinion on some of these applications. So what we were trying to do is clarify that the region does feel that if there is added demand, and again, there are caveats like Commissioner Brothers said, where fire flow is a peaking event. It's not a demand ongoing. So those can proceed. We tried to say like for like, and again, we started getting into giving examples, and it just got unruly because every example has different factors behind it. So if you tore down a 3-bedroom home and you put up a 3-bedroom home, we would see that as like for like. If you replace an older pipe in the ground with a newer pipe in the ground, we see that as like for like. So we didn't want to get into the specifics because, again, we were asked to give some clarification on what we felt could proceed, but ultimately the decision does lie with the chief building official after they've reviewed the entire package and file. And we're here to assist. If there are specific questions moving forward, we're happy to continue to work with the area municipalities.
That makes sense. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Councillor James.
Thank you, through you, Chair. And I think, Amy, this may be for you. It may be picking off Councillor Rodriguez's, but I'm conscious that it is summertime, and I know we've got our water bylaw. I just want to know, and this may be like real ground level, but I think just for public awareness, things like splash pads, those will be okay. People who are refilling pools or hot tubs or what have you, that is okay. When we think about the conservation efforts, I'm also conscious of it's construction season on a big scale, but someone may be trying to redo their basement right now. I think it's valuable for the public, so it's not, they can still proceed. So if you could speak to that in terms of conservation, just.
So through you, Chair, I do know there has been, and I have not been at all of the meetings, but I do know that Dan Mahar, who's leading this working group, has been meeting with the area municipalities to look at other alternatives and things that we can do. And one option that came up around the splash pads was, installing those automatic turnoffs so that the water doesn't continue to flow. So they're also looking at other events where large uses of water are being used and whether we can limit or restrict those activities. These are just conversations that are happening, but on the day-to-day, we are just going to be using the current bylaw until the policy decisions come forward for council's endorsement. And then at that point, that may lead to bylaw changes down the road. But for now, we're just going to be focusing on education and outreach in the community and just bringing attention back to that original bylaw for now.
Okay, and then I guess just to follow up, not really maybe a question, but thinking about industry and incentivizing for conservation areas. I'm not sure if those are part of the conversations, but I just want to put that as, I'm conscious of that too. How can we incentivize some of the industrial in terms of conservation as well?
So through you, Chair, yes, absolutely. We do have a current program now where we work with the top, I think it's top 10, top 15 high water users in the industrial facilities and places in the region. But I do know they're looking at new potential incentives as part of this report that's coming forward.
Thank you.
Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. I think I'm going to ask a different question than what I had intended to. My question is about managing and identifying and how it's accounted for when there are leaks in the system per se. And I know we've talked about that a number of times, that we need to work towards that. I mean, we've all been doing that for years, but can you speak to how that's accounted for from a conservation standpoint?
Yeah. One wouldn't normally associate water leakage or leakage control within a conservation program. Water leakage initiatives is kind of a separate activity unto itself that each municipality, each water system reviews. It's interesting you bring that up. I'm going to have a meeting here with the general managers of the larger cities within the Mannheim area to talk about a consistent water loss assessment program. They've all agreed notionally to do this, and we have a meeting set in the next week that we're going to talk about just that. The extent of water loss, how we can measure and monitor it using best practices in terms of accounting for water. It's referred to as a water balance. And what initiatives that we should take coming from that as we assess in a standardized way what the level of loss is. There's always leakage in the system. The question is, how much does it cost to go after it? But I think in our situation here, given the constraints that we have to demonstrate that we're managing the source of the supply that we have to the best possible extent. The general managers have agreed notionally of this, and we're going to move forward with an initiative, separate initiative on water loss. We haven't started it yet. We've agreed to meet, and that meeting is coming forward.
Councillor Shantz, you're good?
I think I'd like to talk offline on that.
Did you want to ask your other question, or did somebody already ask it?
They didn't. My other question was related to one of the delegations and speaking to how we solicit input from the community in our meetings, because I know we're having lots of meetings, but I don't know if anyone wants to speak to that concern that some people, because I've heard it before, that some people are feeling like they're not getting to provide input and good back and forth discussion in the meetings.
Yeah, through you, Chair Redmond. So very early on in this process, I'd say in the first couple of meetings, we were providing a lot of information, and truth be told, we didn't allocate enough time for those meetings, so we didn't get a fulsome conversation that we all wanted. We subsequently revised our approach to that, so in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th meetings, we allocated at least double the amount of time, and we've had a number of workshop formats to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to engage and to provide their input into the work. We have incorporated feedback from both the area municipalities and the development industry in all of the work that you see here today.
Councillor Vanovich.
Thank you very much. And yeah, I mean, obviously, just as a follow-up to that, there seems to be a bit of a disconnect in terms of portions of the sector feeling like they're having adequate engagement and an opportunity to be heard. And our perspectives or staff's perspective that, we've engaged with them. And so I do think that I would ask maybe that staff take that away and look at how we try to find some alignment in that space, because I think that's going to be really important as we continue to rebuild trust and credibility with the sector and with the community overall around a very complex issue that's taking a whole lot of effort on everyone's part, both from the region, the area municipality, and staff's perspective. I will ask, because throughout even today's presentation and the report, there's a fair bit of reference to the CBOs and engagement and the role that they're going to need to play in all of this. And in preparing for today's meeting, my understanding is that the CBOs have not really been part of any of the working groups as a group of chief building officials. There may be some who are engaged from some municipalities some of the time, or covering off for someone who's on a committee. And certainly some of the planners may be bringing their perspective to the table. But if we're going to really be relying on them, my sense is that it would be helpful. And in talking to them, I get that sense as well, that maybe there's, I don't think we need more people on a regular basis in all the meetings, but maybe have 1 or 2 meetings with that group and the CBOs in order to work through those issues. I'm wondering if staff can offer some perspective to that and how we might be able to accommodate that.
Rod, do you want to respond?
Sure. Through you, Chair Redmond. Yeah, we're always happy to organize a meeting of a specific group of stakeholders, as the CBOs are. I will say that for all of the planning group meetings and the development stakeholder meetings, the invitation is open to the area municipalities, and area municipalities have been assigning staff to participate in those. I know in the case of at least the City of Waterloo, their CBO has been at all the meetings that I've attended. So we've had good participation, and we're certainly open to having CBOs attend each and every one of the planning group meetings, and if they're not already attending them, I'm pretty sure that a good number of them are. But we'll take that away.
Yeah, I think that would be good, because like I say, I know in our case we have a representative from planning and engineering, and it would be helpful probably to do some CBO specific things as opposed to dealing with everything, which just makes the potentially the meetings overall become a little unwieldy. The other question I guess I will ask at this point, and that goes back to the presentation that I referenced earlier, and that several of us saw at the home builders meeting. I'm just wondering what the process would be if we wanted to see that presentation here at council. And I do know in speaking with them that we'd probably need 20 minutes to get through that. It was probably over half an hour at that other meeting. What would the process be, Mr. Clerk, in order to accommodate that? I've done a quick reading of the bylaw, but
I'm going to go. Darshpreet's going to move it.
Just a note on that, Councillor Urbanovich, that individual has been part of the workshops that have been arranged by Rod and the Waters team. In fact, Amy's also sat down with him and have asked him what his concerns and what information he may seek. My understanding is to date, he's asked for certain maps, which we typically don't have in our own or have the ability to provide them, but he's been engaged in the process quite extensively to ensure that his feedback is taken into account as we move forward.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is it was a very informative presentation. As I recall, Councillor Rodriguez, Gowing, James, Wolf, myself, I think Councillor Harris and Councillor Foxton were at that session, and many of us felt it would benefit all of council to hear that and be able to ask questions. And they are obviously a key stakeholder in this as well. And so, notwithstanding whatever discussions might have happened at staff, the presentation would be beneficial, and the ability to ask questions. So in my reading of the bylaw, my understanding is either the clerk can give that, the chair can allow it to go longer, or council could pass a motion to allow a longer presentation. I'm wondering if Mr. Brubaker can comment
I'm going to
on that.
invite Tim to weigh in.
Yeah, through the chair. So the procedure bylaw does allow the chair or council to extend the timing for delegations. I would suggest, though, that if it's the will of council to invite a presentation, the agendas do allow for presentations that are outside of delegations, where if an invited speaker is here, we're not running the timer for them, as opposed to a delegation who's registered on their own accord.
So I guess I would put to council, there's been a suggestion that we have a specific, and I wasn't in the audience to hear him, invite them to come and make a presentation. Is it the will of council to, Councillor Wolf?
Through you, Madam Chair. I think since so many of us saw the presentation, I don't see the need for it. And frankly, I found some of the information, I don't know how to put, not as, maybe not accurate or downplayed. For instance, the difference between, getting the water from Cambridge to Mannheim, it was made it sound like, well, this is just simple, and when it isn't, and would cost millions. And I just think, there was a purpose for his presentation at that Home Builders Association. But I do think that most of council saw the presentation, so I'm not sure what the purpose would be for us to see it again.
So if I can respond to that, and I'm prepared to move it formally if that's what's necessary. To be clear, most of council didn't see it because that would have been quorum, and quorum wasn't present at that meeting. And so I do think that, yes, for some of us it may be a duplication, but it'll also be an opportunity for it to be heard in a public forum. And I think transparency is important. And I also think that it would be it would be good for all of council to hear that and have that information and factor it in to everything that we do.
So I'm cognizant that we still have another major report to cover off. But I see Councillor Rodriguez and Councillor James. It does not feel like we have unanimous consent, so it would have to be a motion to invite them in. Councillor Rodriguez?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. A question perhaps of yourself or the clerk. If this presentation were to happen, would staff have an opportunity to speak to it after in terms of what has been claimed or suggested in it? I think that would be an important part of, and if that did happen. Without having to do a full report, recognizing how onerous a staff report is. Again, we don't typically debate a delegation, but if there's an opportunity, I assume that staff have seen this presentation and know what's going to be part of it, and if they could speak to it after, and even just a verbal statement. I don't know. I just want to make sure that this is not a make-work project, but
I would think those parameters would have to be set out ahead of time, because even a presentation, though not a delegation, we generally don't debate, but I guess I would look to Tim.
Yeah, through the chair, I think you're right. It would be, the parameters would have to be determined by council. I think after delegations, we often have questions of staff with respect to that. Again, this is a presentation, so I would sort of equate it to a little bit like when the GRCA or the chief of police comes in to make a presentation. They're invited to come in, but if there's questions of staff with respect to comments that they've made, that's generally appropriate.
Councillor James?
Thank you, through you, Chair. And yes, I was at that presentation at the Waterloo Region Home Builders. I think I'm erring more on the side of supporting if Mayor Vervanovic has a motion to support that. Reason being, I don't believe there were any regional staff in the building at the time. And I think there is value for council to hear that presentation, and I think for regional staff as well. There was some information provided, and I hear what Councillor Wolf is saying around maybe there were some misinterpretations or what have you, but because we were dealing with something so technical, because recognizing this individual and the perspective that they bring, I think there is value in at least council hearing the two different the perspective that this individual brings to this discussion. I also think in terms of how we move through this with that transparency and trust and relationship building, I think that it would be valuable, also recognizing that I don't want this to be a make work project for staff. I think there's value in council hearing the conversation, the presentation that took place at the home builders. It was very insightful, I will say that, and I think there's value in the rest of council seeing this.
So I'm going to recognize two more speakers. We're sort of debating something that's a non-issue because there's no motion on the floor, but I will go to Councillor Erb and then to Councillor Craig.
Thanks, Chair. My concern in inviting this group or other representatives to make a presentation that we're getting different information again, and it set up some debate in the community as to what information is accurate and what information is not accurate. And so, we go 2 steps forward and then we go a step back by getting other information that's debated here. So I'm not sure how helpful this would be to where we are now, that we seem to be starting another process over. So I'm not going to, if there's a motion coming, I'm not going to support it because I don't want us to be bringing new information to the table that may not be accurate based on what I've heard from the presentation that was made.
Councillor Craig.
Well, no, I have no problem. I would very much be interested in hearing from this new delegation that's being proposed. And I think with regards to the overall issue with the community, there's a tremendous interest what's happening with the water capacity problems we're facing. And any kind of further information or hearing from other delegations, I think is important in terms of credibility, building trust, all of that. So I don't have a problem. And in terms, the only thing I would be cautious about is that it should not become a debate between the delegation and staff. Okay, we have to be careful of that. And I think that going forward with this would certainly, I think, enlighten a lot of us in terms of other points of view. I think that's the important aspect. So I'll support the motion.
There is no motion right now. I'm going to weigh in. Councillor Craig.
All I'm saying, Madam Chair, is when the motion does come to the floor, I'll support it.
I'm going to weigh in and just take us Chair's prerogative for a moment and say there are no end to other experts out there. I have heard many points of view. This is one. I did not see the presentation. I'm wondering if a middle ground to Councillor Craig's point about debate, if this presentation was made, can we not get something in written form as opposed to them coming in as a delegation for information to council? Again, we're picking out one external expert, and there have been many. And so why we're picking on this one in particular when, and I've actually heard some of the comments that Councillor Wolf has made, is that there were inaccuracies. There were some assumptions made that are probably not in line with the kind of prudence and the rigor that our staff have applied. So we're going to maybe see daylight and get into a debate that may or may not be productive. So I now have 3 more speakers, and then I'm going to ask that we move on because we have a very important piece of information and a report that we have to deal with. So Councillor Vanovic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so I think the whole point is to actually have the ability to ask questions. And I think what I've heard from some of our colleagues is the ability for council to ask questions both of the delegation and of staff afterwards, not to get a debate going, but as we would, as Mr. Brubaker said, with the GRCA or the police, have an opportunity for this individual who spoke at the home builders to present and to be asked for any questions of clarification. So I will move that we allow that to happen up to 20 minutes, and that it happen either at Regional Council on May the 20th or one of our two committee days on, or I guess special council days on May 28th or June 3rd. I think actually hearing it earlier may actually be helpful in order to help everyone be better informed with the decisions we're going to need to make on May 28th or June 3rd. So I will move that.
So it's been moved, a date to be established, but in the future, and I guess, is there a seconder? Okay, seconded by Councilor Rodriguez. Is there a reason that this delegation has not come forward to present to council in the past?
Is there a reason?
There's nothing to stop anybody from the community to come and present.
Well, it's a 5-minute, they get 5 minutes to do that. And so that's the point, is it was like a 35-minute presentation. You can't do that in 5 minutes. And so that's why I'm moving 20 minutes in order to allow that to happen.
So Councilor Gowing, do you want to speak to this as a seconder?
Yeah,
Councilor Gowing, did you not second it?
I did put my hand up,
But you said my name.
that's okay. Yes, so this information is out in the public, and if you weren't at that presentation, it's already out there in some form or another. I think it gives us the opportunity as a whole to be able to ask those questions, ask questions of staff. Going to back to one of the comments that were made, that there was assumptions made. It goes back to Councillor Vrvanovic's question earlier about data. There wasn't enough data for him to receive from us or given the opportunity to get that information. So he was only basing some of the presentation on assumptions with his expertise. So I think that it is beneficial for the rest of council to hear this. So that's why I would support him coming in. And at that point, we can have staff. And if the presentation comes ahead of time, hopefully staff will be able to go through it and be prepared themselves so that they can answer questions that we would have at that point. So I think this is a good idea.
Okay, and we were referring to Chris Garrett, right? Yes. Okay. We have had an unnamed person in the motion, and I do apologize to Councillor Rodriguez. It was Councillor Gowing I was looking at. I just said the wrong name. So we've got Councillor Wolf, Councillor Schatz, Councillor Liggett, and then we're going to call the vote.
Okay. Through you, Madam Chair. Originally, I was on the speaker list to ask a question of staff. So can I do that now, or do I need to speak to the
Let's take the vote unless the question relates to this, and I'll come back to you.
It's an easy question. And it may. Can I just ask it? Is the dashboard information staff gave council the information the delegates are asking for?
So through the chair, my understanding is it's slightly different. The costing model or the cash flow model that they were mentioning is not particularly what we were asked to do and what we've developed. But we have promised to provide that to them as soon as the IT piece gets worked out with the gold standard piece where we can share that openly. So we are willing to share that. I'm not sure it gives them everything they were looking for with respect to a dashboard, but all the pieces are there.
But the dashboard showed like the water flows, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
Which is what they said they wanted.
Yes.
And perhaps if we get that, maybe this presentation might be more accurate. So that, but I don't, frankly, I think it is a step backwards, and we want to move forward, and we want to, get to June 3rd where we make our decision, and, and I think that this is just going to complicate matters.
Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. As much as we'd like to think science is black or white, it's not. Excuse me. And the information is clearly out there. So I think, why are we afraid to address it? And I would agree. I think Councillor Gowing said it very well, that if there's information out there that's incorrect, let's hear it. Let's not put our head in the sand. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. That doesn't bode well for tomorrow. We shouldn't put our head in the sand, so let's hear the information, let's deal with it, and if it's inaccurate, let's correct it.
Councillor Leggett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Both those dates are problematic for me. I have other stuff that I have to be doing. If this is going to be passed, I likely won't be there for the presentation anyway, but I'm hoping that we do get it sent to us. Are we going to get Mr. Garrett's report prior to that?
Again, I think it's one of the things that we can ask when we put forward the invitation.
Okay, because if it's done for those of us that weren't at the previous meeting where he presented, but we won't be there, let's say on the 28th or the 3rd, then it defeats the whole purpose of having him present. So I wouldn't be able, I have multiple things going on, so it's really becoming problematic for me to attend some of these meetings. So thanks.
Thank you very much. So it's been moved and seconded, and we'll now put it up. What is she? All right. We're going to put it up first, but does everybody know what it is, basically? Okay. So we'll just let the vote go forward. Councillor Gowing.
Just on the date for June 3rd, some of us will be at FCM, or FCM? FCM.
It's before June 3rd. It's not on June 3rd.
Okay.
That's why I wanted it back up
this
again.
This reads as on. Oh, I guess
sorry, I don't
by.
see it on the screen.
Can we pull down the vote and put up the motion, please? So the motion is that the Regional Municipality Waterloo directs staff to invite Chris Garretts to present for 20 minutes on an upcoming special council meeting before June 3rd, 2026 is what that should say.
But, Madam Chair, I actually was very specific with 3 dates, either the council date later this month, which actually would be ideal, or the May 28th or June 3rd meetings. The council date later this month is not a special council, but a regular council meeting.
So we should put those 2 dates in then?
Yes, that would be. I think what's the council day? May 20th, May 28th, or June 3rd?
Not June 3rd.
Oh, okay.
So the 20th or the 28th.
Okay, that's fine.
So we all now know what we're voting on. Councillor Gowing? Councillor Rodriguez? So now please use your e-scribe to vote.
I was kicked out. I'm in favor. Oh, back.
Colleagues, that is carried, so we will have a conversation about scheduling that. So the next report is an update on the Mannheim Service Water Capacity Constraint Allocation Program and Policy Interim Update. And I think Commissioner Regier is going to kick this off.
Yeah.
There is an motion attached, so I will need a mover and a seconder.
And I think we've got a presentation here as well. And I will ask Alyssa to come to the podium, Alyssa, to help me present. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair Redmond. The team has prepared a water supply capacity allocation policy to transparently and efficiently allocate water to area municipalities to support future growth. A water allocation policy was identified as necessary back in 2024 by the Bill 23 working group that was made up of area municipal and regional planning staff at that time. Work on that allocation policy was underway right through 2025 and just recently paused at the end of last year. But this represents a continuation of that conversation. What you'll see today is for your consideration is the work of regional staff teams with significant input from area municipal planning leads and the development stakeholder group. This includes 6 meetings with our area municipal colleagues on this topic and 2 specific meetings with the development stakeholder group, one that was a workshop style and one additional one as a group discussion. I'll now turn it over to Alyssa Bridge, Acting Associate Director of Regional Development, and Ryan Pagrisba for Manager of Growth Management and Analytics Services.
Through the chair, good afternoon, and thank you, Commissioner Regier. There is a need for a transparent and streamlined policy to guide how water is allocated as new water becomes available in the Mannheim service area. Through consultation with our colleagues at the area municipalities, a policy has been drafted that follows 3 main steps. First, the region of Waterloo will identify available water capacity. In the near term, this will be led by the interim risk management framework. Secondly, the region will then allocate a predetermined percentage of water to the area municipalities, which we're referring to as a bucket of capacity, in the form of liters per second. The area municipality will then have the primary role of allocating that water to site-specific projects within their municipality. The proposed policy aligns with current planning roles and responsibilities, and we've brought the policy to Council in advance of the risk management framework to provide the most time possible for the area municipalities to develop their policies and bylaws, which would guide the allocation of water to development. Next slide, please. The policy is included as Appendix A of this report for your reference. To dig a little more into the details, the policy is specific to the Mannheim service area. It's designed to be streamlined and transparent. It's not anticipated to create any blocks to moving development forward. The policy requires an annual review of the policy to ensure that it's working well, to ensure that the data that informs the policy is accurate, and to ensure that the policy remains relevant. New water supply capacity will be allocated to the area municipalities proportionally based on the forecasted population and employment growth within the Mannheim service area. The allocation will be both for residential and non-residential development, and generally speaking, for every 100 people added through residential development, approximately 52 jobs will be accounted for. And we'll cover that in a little bit more detail in a moment. Initially, the allocation will occur quarterly as new capacity is identified through the interim risk management framework and will shift to less frequent intervals as water capacity is added to the Mannheim service area. As Commissioner Reguer mentioned, the Planning Focus Working Group and Development Stakeholder Group have provided ongoing input into this policy. In total, there were 8 meetings held across these 2 groups, which focused on the way the policy would work and the impact that it would have. A variety of perspectives were heard around both tables, and regional staff have drafted the policy in a way that mitigates many of the concerns that were heard. Some of these concerns include understanding why a policy is necessary for water allocation, being mindful not to create unnecessary administration or roadblocks to development approvals, the area municipality's desire for flexibility, how community uses or uses that have region-wide benefits should be addressed, and how water allocation is calculated. Next slide, please. We have broken down the roles and responsibilities for the region and the area municipalities as it relates to this policy. Overall, the region will regularly review the policy to ensure its effectiveness, will lead regular reporting and data coordination with all partners. In the near term, we'll reserve capacity for registered unbuilt units in plans of subdivision, and will identify projects that have region-wide benefit with the area municipalities, such as the future hospital, and bring them forward for council consideration on the allocation of water. The area municipalities will develop their own policy or bylaw to guide the allocation of water supply to site-specific developments. They'll ensure that their allocated capacity is not exceeded through approvals, and they'll continue to share data with the region to support the monitoring of available capacity. I'll now pass it over to my colleague Ryan, who will speak in more detail to how water allocation will be calculated.
Thank you, Alyssa. We can go to the next slide, please. So the following table shows how the allocation of future supply could be allocated based on information available today related to the anticipated growth of each area municipality. The area municipal growth projections shown on the screen reflect the actual forecasted growth for the portion of their municipality within the Mannheim service area between 2026 and 2051. The amount of water on the right side of the table is for illustrative purposes only, but helps to demonstrate how the water would be allocated across the Mannheim service area based on the area municipal share of growth. It's important to note that the majority of Cambridge is serviced through a separate water system, the Middleton service area. Only a small portion of Cambridge is within the Mannheim service area, specifically referred to as the East Side lands, essentially west of Speedsville Road and north of the 401, is within the Mannheim service area, which is why their allocation is relatively low. Similarly, in Wilmot, this allocation is related to the St. Agatha and Mannheim settlement area only. New Hamburg and Baden are serviced by a separate water service area. Working across the columns here, the first provides the name of the municipality. The second provides information related to the projected population and employment growth from 2026 to 2051. These forecasts are based on the most up-to-date information from area municipal official plans, and in some cases, master plans or secondary plans. As area municipalities work to update their official plans, including growth projections, we will update our allocation accordingly. The third column illustrates each area municipality's proportional growth percentage within the Mannheim service area. This same percentage will be used to calculate the amount of water each municipality is granted in liters per second. In this scenario, we have assumed an available capacity of 100 liters per second, just to illustrate how the allocation will be assigned. So here we see that if 100 liters were to be allocated, Kitchener would receive 51% or 51 liters. Waterloo would see 24% or 24 liters, and so on. Again, I do want to be clear that this is just for illustrative purposes on how the allocation of water would be distributed between the area municipalities based on their growth projections. In terms of industrial, commercial, institutional, or non-residential uses, from the liters per second that the municipalities receive, They will allocate this to residential development and ICI developments. Allocation for ICI developments is calculated as a factor of the overall growth in the municipality. For every 100 people that are added through the residential allocation, 52 jobs are accounted for. And this is because Waterloo Region's employment base is made up of both local residents as well as a percentage of individuals who commute into the region for work. And with that, I will pass it back to Melissa.
Thanks, Ryan. Next slide, please. Staff are now preparing the supplemental documents to support area municipal implementation of the policy. This includes a conversion tool to translate the liters per second allocation into population, and a tracking tool that will provide for continuous monitoring. We are looking for endorsement of the policy today, and implementation of the policy would occur alongside the interim risk management framework, which will be considered by Council in June. The communications team is working with the area municipal communication leads on aligning consistent messaging regarding the policy, and following endorsement of the policy, it would be shared broadly with the development industry and the community at large. Thank you for your time this afternoon, and we'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. I am sure we'll have questions. So just to refresh everybody's memory, the motion that we are being asked to deal with is that the regional municipality of Waterloo adopt a water supply capacity allocation policy for Manheim service area as outlined in the report that's just been presented May 6, 2026, and that Regional Council directs staff to implement the provisions of this allocation policy. Having said that, Councilor Rodriguez.
Thanks, Chair. And this is really great. This is, I think, exactly where we need to be at this point in time in terms of allocation. My first question is related to one of the delegations. And there was, I guess, this question of when the details are coming, when the numbers are coming. So just for the benefit of those watching and for council, can you explain, we approve a policy today that sets out some principles and a policy, and then that once this interim risk framework's done, then there's future council decisions and probably a lot of engagement with your municipalities and development community on what the actual allocation would be for that quarter in this case. Could you just confirm if that's sort of the next high-level next steps?
Through the chair, thanks for the question, Councillor Rodriguez. It's a bit of a multi-step process. So in June, council will consider the interim risk management framework. That will tell us how much water is available and when to allocate. And then using the recommendations of the interim risk management framework, we'll use the proportions of growth that Ryan showed on his slide to determine the area municipal allocation. From there, the area municipalities will develop their policies and programs and allocate that or commit that to site-specific developments.
Okay, that's great to hear. I think that I understand how that will flow then. In terms of the broader region taking a step back, right? We're talking about the Manheim system right now, and obviously there's a immense urgency to get this sorted out as soon as possible. But we have a water supply strategy coming in the next year or two that is looking at the whole integrated urban system. We have a bunch of standalone systems. Could staff comment on, do we see this rolling out to some type of allocation policy rolling out to Middleton? I'd hate to get, there's probably a lot of water in Middleton right now, but we'd hate to get ever to a scenario where we are now in Manheim, in Middleton, or even in the standalone systems. And those have their own quirks in terms of capacity and on wastewater and water. But could you just comment, and this may be a question for the water services team as well, but following that water supply strategy, or at some point, do we see this allocation policy being expanded to all of the water systems that we operate and not just Manheim?
Thanks for the question through the chair. So going back to the Bill 23 working group conversations that Commissioner Reguer mentioned, the concept of an allocation policy came out of some of that Bill 23 implementation work. And at the time, it was much broader, looking at water service areas and wastewater service areas. So at this time, we realized there was an immediate need to get something in place for the Manheim service area. I think as we implement this and learn from our experience implementing it, it's certainly a discussion we'd like to have about whether it makes sense to expand it to other water service areas and potentially other wastewater service areas as well.
No, thanks for that clarification. I think would be a really valuable conversation for probably the next term of council to have, but an important one nonetheless. Thank you.
Councillor Shawns.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Can you speak a little bit to how you've worked with area municipalities on this allocation? And have they seen, like, have our staff seen this report?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Through the chair. So the policy was developed in collaboration with the area municipal or planning focus working group, which is comprised of representatives from the area municipalities. So in large part, the planning heads or directors of planning for each area municipality sit on that group. So that group has met, I believe, 6 times specific to the allocation policy. So we've done a number of facilitated workshops and discussions to get us to this point. And the area municipal feedback was incorporated into the policy. And yes, they have received an advanced copy of the policy.
So if I can follow up, when I checked with my staff, they have a different recollection as to the Woolwich percentage. Was there something changed? What are they?
Go ahead, Ryan.
Through the chair. During some of the latest discussions we had with the municipal group, it was identified that it would be more representative to include both population and jobs in the equation. The original numbers that we provided, as an example, just showed population growth. Significant employment growth is also anticipated in a lot of our areas, so we've incorporated both population and jobs in the overall equation to decide on the percentages.
So that part of it then hasn't been shared with our planning staff? That's just something you just did prior to publishing this? Or just trying to understand?
Point of clarification, Madam Chair, because I think what maybe is getting missed is the slide, if it can be brought back up on the screen.
It was a sample slide of 100 liters per second.
Yeah, it just shows what the numbers might look like, not what they actually
Exactly. That was just an illustration, right?
So the 100 liter is an illustration, but the actual percentages are correct.
Okay.
So that information was provided to the Air Municipal Stakeholder Group in advance of this. That discussion happened with them a few weeks ago. Over the weekend, we incorporated those numbers and met with them. So we had met with them on a Friday in early April, mid-April. We received that feedback. We worked over the weekend and met with them on Monday following and presented the findings to them.
Councillor Schatz.
Yeah, I'm probably going to have to oppose this motion until I get clarity from my staff. So just thanks for the information, but I need some clarity.
Okay, Councillor James.
Thank you, through you, Chair, and thank you for this policy. It allows for an accountability piece. That's how I see it. When you have a policy and a framework, it provides an accountability piece. Councillor Schatz kind of asked my questions about the area municipalities, and in terms of working together. I don't have any doubts that you worked collaboratively, especially given the nature of this. So Chair Redmond, at the appropriate time, I'm prepared to move this.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Foxton and thirded by Councillor Vrbanovich. Councillor Rodriguez.
Yeah, maybe we could just get a little bit of clarity on these percentages, just because I don't know if they're, when I read the policy in Appendix A, it talks about Attachment A, which doesn't have the numbers, or we're not approving specific numbers today, right? In terms of the percentages, we're just approving a framework policy, right? I'm seeing lots of nodding yeses. So we're not approving numbers today.
Through you, Chair Redmond, I maybe ask Ryan to explain the rationale behind the percentages, how those percentages were derived, and then respond to Councillor Rodriguez's question.
Thank you. So the forecasts that we've shown on the screen are reflective of Air Municipal Official Plan and Master Plan forecast, where we've had those information available. For areas like the City of Kitchener, the City of Waterloo, Their OP figures incorporate the entirety of the Mannheim service area for them. In Cambridge, it's only a small portion, so we've had to go to specific master plan forecasts that delineate those specific areas, but we've looked at both population and employment growth for those respective areas and incorporated into this. I think the reason why these percentages are not included in the specific bylaw is because as new information comes, we will update them. So we didn't want to hold it to these numbers, recognize that as more data becomes available, as we have updates, we'll update this accordingly to always use the best available information.
That's great. And then just to clarify that when the quarterly allocations happen, it'll include assumptions around growth for that quarter that feed into it, and that's all a council decision. Like it's if there's questions about at a specific point in time about how much water any area municipality is getting, that's happening every quarter as things get allocated.
Can I ask a clarification?
Do you want to call a friend?
You wanted to ask a clarification question.
Ask a clarification question.
Are you asking if in a few months we're going to factor in the growth that's happened in a few months and rebase the allocations?
Yes.
We have not considered that, but we certainly could.
I thought that's just why you were saying it wasn't included in the policy.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, I see no further questions, so it's been moved and seconded. Councillor Ranovich.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I thought it was on. My apologies. I guess I just, my main concern, and I'm supportive of this and want to thank staff for all the work that's been done to get this, because this is the prelude that's necessary in order to for the next set of documents and policies to come forward to us in May. I'm concerned on page 2 of 6 with the wording that says regional council may reserve servicing capacity for other projects that have region-wide benefit, including but not limited to hospitals. And that policy, and to be clear, number one, I can't imagine anyone around this horseshoe saying that we shouldn't prioritize water for a hospital. Number two, on that particular issue, the earliest the hospital is going to be built is actually about 6 years from now. And I would suggest that we better have this water problem solved by then, or we've got bigger problems as a region, respectfully. I do think, though, the way the wording is right now, it basically allows the region to decide that something is a regional project, take it off the top, and then it leaves the rest for everyone else. And so I think of affordable housing projects as an example. We have the region who has funding for affordable housing, but we also have area municipalities who have funding from the federal and provincial governments towards that. And, I think that as an example, any of those should really be decided in conjunction with each other. And so I'm wondering if there would be any concern if we added the words from staff, if we added the words, regional council in conjunction with area municipalities may reserve servicing capacity for other projects that have region-wide benefit. So it's just adding the words in conjunction with area municipalities. Would that be a concern for staff? And if it isn't, I would prepare to move that as an amendment.
Well, I'm going to say that I'm going to ask staff to respond. Rod, is that an issue?
Through you, Chair Redmond, our assumption is that all of those decisions would be in consultation with the area municipalities, and of course they will be fully debated here at regional council as well. This will be ultimately a regional council decision.
So if there's no problem, I'm just going to ask, do we have unanimous consent rather than amend that, just to say that we would add that wording in?
But not like this, not on as shown on our screen.
Councillor Rodriguez? Not the motion. This is just, we would have unanimous consent that when we endorse this, those words would be added to the section that Councillor Urbanovich was just referencing.
Yeah, on page 2 of 6.
And I don't see anybody objecting, so there's unanimous consent just to change that.
Okay, I'm good with that. Thank you, Chair Redmond.
Okay. And I just want to reiterate what Rod had said, and that's that these decisions will come back to council. So it's not like we're endorsing this policy and never seeing it again. So I see no other speakers. It's been moved and seconded. Please cast your ballots. Colleagues, that is carried. And Councillor Shantz, maybe we can have a discussion offline around your concerns. So thank you, colleagues. That is carried. There is correspondence that you have received electronically. I'm now looking for a motion to enact the bylaws of today's meeting, first, second, and third readings. Moved by Councillor Gowing, seconded by Councillor Rodriguez. Please use your icons to vote. So this motion to adjourn is moved by Councillor Liggett and seconded by Councillor Urbanovich. Do I have unanimous consent? Thank you, colleagues. This meeting is adjourned.